Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our What's New and What's Next webinar. I am joined today by two great speakers who are going to run you through all of the things that we have released and researched over the second half of the year. Olga Beragabaya, our VP of AI at Smartling, and Andrew Sachs, our VP of Product. So thanks so much, Olga and Andrew, for being here today. Going to do a couple quick housekeeping items, and then I'm going to head off and hand it over to them. We probably won't have time for a lot of Q&A, but if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A tab. And if we don't get to them at the end of the session, we will follow up with you personally after the event. And then we also will be posting at the end our next webinar for December, so feel free to sign up for that, all about 2025 predictions, and Olga will be joining us again for that. So with all of that said, Olga and Andrew, I will pass this over to you and head backstage, and I'll be back at the end of the webinar. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Cassie. So welcome to our fall release. We'll be sharing a lot of exciting news about what has been released and what's on the roadmap. Obviously, in the world of AI, there is a pressure of using AI across the board. And I think what has changed in 2024 is we learned so much about how AI, and specifically generative AI and large language models, work, that actually now we deploy them and use them in a way more structured and way more measured way based on all these learnings. So that's what we'll be talking about. And Andrew, off to you.
Great, thank you, Olga. All right, yeah, let's start with what's new, and I'll talk about a few things that are new and upcoming in the platform, and then I'll hand it back off to Olga to talk about things that are happening in AI and research. All right, so today we are announcing a new service offering from Smartling called AI Translation. And when we look at AI translation, we're really thinking about this as a replacement for traditional MTPE. When we think about MTPE, it's really machine translation with a human doing some post-edit. And probably everyone on this call is familiar with MQM. It's a framework for measuring quality of translation. And on the far left, you have around 90, which is usually where you would find a machine translation engine. Maybe trained MT would get you around 93. And then on the far right, you have human translation. And that's generally considered maybe a 98 or above. And 98 or above is where Smartling's AI HT offering comes in, starting at about 12 cents, a little bit of a turnaround, and a satisfaction guarantee. And we were really looking at what is missing in the middle, and that is where AIT comes in. So at a replacement for MTPE, except at half the price and a near instant delivery, and we're also offering a satisfaction guarantee with AIT. So AIT works like this. First, we use translation memory. We take translation memory matches and we apply AI and LLMs to it to try to improve those matches. So maybe we can take something that was an 80% match and make it a 95% match, or an 85% match and make it a 99% match. Then that goes into a step 2, where we take an MT translation from various MT engines, and we mix them up and we score them and try to assess the quality of that translation. And our goal is to try to get to the best first translation. So now that we've ranked and scored these translations, both from MT engines as well as from translation memory, we're able to pick the best translation. And then that goes to an AI post-editing step. And the AI post-editing step, we fix kind of a lot of the things that MT engines mess up, such as white space and tags and line breaks. And then we also do glossary insertion so that we can take glossary terms that might exist in a customer's account and insert the glossary term and then fix the translations and the glossary terms to, again, try to get to that best first translation. So now that we have a context-aware translation that has been improved through AI and LLMs, it can either go to published or to an optional linguist for validation. And this is the AIT offering for MTPE for half the price and the same quality as you would get with a traditional MTPE offering. And again, this really fits in this broad spectrum of translation solutions. So on one end, you have content for machine translation, which might be long tail web content or maybe help content, support tickets, things like that. On the other end of the spectrum, you have human translation, maybe transcreation for creative content, or maybe medical or patent content or something. And then in the middle is where these AI and human-powered translations come in. And our new service offering, AIT, fits right in the middle. And you can imagine having maybe a large product catalog or documentation or maybe SEO keywords, survey data, something that can really fit this use case. So that is AIT. It's intended to be an MTPE offering, half the price, satisfaction guarantee, and a near instant delivery. Let's talk about something else that's new in Smartling. So we've been working on our LQA tools for a long time, and we've had LQA as part of the platform since for many years, and many of our customers have used LQA in the platform. Over the last several months, we've really been working on building out the tool set so that it can be, so that we can have a real competitive offering, as well as be able to support all of the new LQA that's necessary for evaluating MT and AI translations. We've been testing with several customers since maybe the end of July and early August, and we've had a lot of really great feedback. So the new LQA suite has a bunch of different enhancements from our previous LQA offering. A few of those include a dedicated environment. So rather than having content that is within the normal project, it is a separate environment and has a snapshot of the content that then can have LQA run against it in a separate system that is completely separate from the rest of the project content. You can also build an LQA job in the platform, and you can take content from multiple projects in the platform and combine it into a single job for LQA. And that really simplifies the process of creating content that can go to LQA. If you can think about, like, maybe you have a campaign where you had web content in one project and help content in another project, and maybe documentation in another project, you can now bundle all of that up into a single LQA job. And then finally, there's also round trip editing optionally. You can have content in this separate project that then, if you want linguists to be able to make updates to it, those edits can go into project content and then can be published and pushed back to wherever they may ultimately live. Yeah, so again, this is kind of the flow of the LQA suite. Pick the content, take a snapshot of the system, takes a snapshot of the content and TM and context and all those elements that are really necessary to have proper LQA. The linguists, the LQA reviewers work in the CAP tool, and then there's different ways to be able to get content back to the normal project content. And of course, then there's all the reporting that comes with LQA and all the different schemas and customized schemas and frameworks and things that you want to be able to support in LQA. And we really looked at the different features of the LQA offerings, and as well as for our competitors. And our LQA suite, we think, checks all of the boxes that someone wouldn't need to go to a third-party offering. And we really think it is super beneficial to have the LQA suite as part of the overall TMS. That way you don't have to move content in and out of the platform. You have all of the TM and glossaries. You have that snapshot of content at the time that you want to perform LQA, and you don't have to be moving content in and out of the platform. And this, as of today, is going to be available for all enterprise customers included in the platform. And there's some help content on the Help Center, which can help you get started. Another new offering today is something that we're calling data access. So this is a new feature that we're offering to really give customers access to the data that's stored in the platform that then they can build their own reports off of. So our customer team and our product engineering teams get requests all the time for different different types of reports and different customizations of reports. And this gives our customers access to that data. Right now, it's going to be included as part of the enterprise offering for all customers. You do have to request from your CSM, from your customer success manager, to have access to it, but it is available included as part of the enterprise offering. It really works by taking this data that exists in the background in all of our data pipelines, from context coverage to on-time delivery to translation quality checks and edit distance and word counts and all these different things that we're capturing in the platform. And then we put it into a secure area for storage. And then you, the customer, can do really what you want to with it. You can pull it into Tableau or Power BI and build custom reports and dashboards. You can pull it into Looker. You can pull it into a SQL database. It's really this raw set of data that gives you the power to connect it to your internal systems for finance, or connect it to Jira, however you want to slice and dice the content. So this is a new offering and is available to all customers starting today. A couple more things. We did recently release two new pretty major connectors. One is for Adobe Workfront, which is kind of a project management file storage system from Adobe. And then also an integration to ServiceNow to support all the different content types in ServiceNow. These are two super popular platforms, and we're happy to be able to support those now. We also have a lot of third parties that have built integrations into Smartling, and these are managed by the third parties, but we're really excited to support these and be able to offer these to our customers. I think we saw maybe in the last week, Lingoport announced their integration, and we're really excited to have that integration for them as well. And of course, over the last 6 months, I think we did the last one of these in April or May, and we've had a ton of other releases since then. We introduced a new role, the content viewer role, which gives read-only access to content in the platform. We have new file support for InDesign. I think we just released XC strings for Apple. We made updates to job automation rules. We have a pretty important feature for our GDN customers for tracking content that is live on the website. We had a pretty major announcement at our last event where we announced our AI toolkit, and we've been adding a lot of new features and functionality to the AI toolkit. We recently released support for Google Adaptive, which is a new translation offering from Google. We released issues management for Jira, and we've also continued our rollout for multi-factor authentication to make sure that the platform is super secure. And all of these releases can also be found in our release notes on our help site. And let's just spend a minute talking about what's coming up for 2025. We'll probably have another one of these events in March or April next year. And we have a few focus areas that we're going to be looking at for the first part of the year. First is around people and user management. Our people pages and user management and role management is a little out of date, and we're excited to be able to make some updates to those and reduce the number of clicks and provide real power in managing your users in the platform. We've made a commitment to being accessibility compliant. So that is ensuring that the platform works for all different levels of accessibility and screen readers, and having the right color balance and fonts and all the different things that are important for accessibility. And with that, we also anticipate and expect a lot of UI and UX improvements. Third is around AI translation and quality assessment, and Olga's going to talk about some of the things that the research team is working on. But we'll continue to build out functionality around incorporating all the different AI and LLM tools into the platform, and making sure that we can really support the different types of tools and LLMs that our customers are asking for and are using themselves. And then we'll continue our build out of various connectors. We have Shopify coming up very soon. We'll have Webflow as well coming up very soon. And probably in the first quarter of next year, 2025, we will start working on Sitecore XM Cloud, and that's among probably some others, but those are probably our major announcements for connectors in the first part of the year. All right, I think that is what I have for product and platform announcements, and I will turn it over to Olga to talk about research.
Okay, so let's review some research here. We'll be talking about our findings and things that, as I said, we've learned through the year and that we have actually been experimenting on. So finding number one would be, we still see neural machine translation engines outperforming large language models for translation tasks. However, when I say large language models, I'm saying general purpose large language models. But those, the most popular ones, are definitely not quite on par with neural machine translation. And in a bit, I'll be talking about the metrics and the methodology that we applied to get these learnings. Then, finding number two, Andrew already mentioned that all the APE, or automated post editing, that we're doing using large language models and other proprietary NLP. And if you apply automated post editing on top of neural machine translation, you actually get the best of both worlds. You get the accuracy of neural machine translation and the fluency of large language models. And again, Andrew already mentioned MQM, and it easily gets you 4 or 5 MQM points, which obviously is a very big deal given the framework, the nature of the framework. Fine-tuning edit effort estimation models or quality estimation models, that's the third one, actually can improve the accuracy of your predictions by up to 50%. And again, that's something that we'll talk about in more detail. Then we go to the fourth one. Probability and randomness can actually help identify and mitigate hallucinations in translation. We do know that maybe neural machine translation to a less extent still hallucinates sometimes, but when it comes to Gen AI, hallucinations are the biggest issue in deploying them. So automated MQM, another big topic in the industry. Like, can we really apply automation and MQM your content across the board, not just select MQM? And we definitely see that it's viable and it's possible. And then new feature, translation memory optimization, aka managing your linguistic assets using AI, would be another one. So let's do a bit of a deep dive. So here you can see multiple NMT engines and large language models that are being compared using industry standard and research standard metrics, BLEU and TER, translation error rate, and Levenstein. So, and Levenstein edited this. So yes, BLEU and Levenstein or TER. So as you can see, if we take trained engine Google AutoML, it still consistently outperforms both generic engines and large language models when it comes to translation tasks. And you can see some graphs proving this point to the right. So what it means that you're probably still safer if you want to be predictable and have predictable results in your production. You probably want to go with a custom MT solution, again, augmented by automated post editing. So there we go. APE, automated post editing, actually does increase quality by 4 or 5 MQM points. So again, what Andrew already described, step one would be AI repaired translation memory, AI translation memory, then you run to AI translation, which in our case would still, while we provide the option of using LLM as a translation engine, we still see more successes with NMT. So step two would be neural machine translation engines. And then you have AI post editing or automated post editing before the publishing step. So what can we achieve with this automated post editing? We do very important things like gender disambiguation, because models still traditionally, just because the model doesn't know any better, the model would still assign certain jobs or certain cultural phenomena to a male versus a female, and or vice versa. And this is where we use LLM to disambiguate the gender, and that helps us support our customers' DEI initiatives. So insertion of morphologically correct brand terminology, that's been a struggle for years. You could, in standard NMT or like even more historic MT approaches, you could get your brand terminology right. but the odds of it being morphologically consistent and morphologically correct and not breaking the sentence structure would often be pretty low. So again, you get your brand terminology, you get your brand tone and voice, but you also have the fluency, completely well-formed fluent sentence. And then we have overall smoothing for accuracy, for syntax, grammar, and sentence structure, making sure that you get well-rounded, well-formed sentences. So and there is a lot more in the APE research and in the pipeline right now. Let's go to finding 3. As I said, LLM can be used to disambiguate gender in translation, and we're seeing pretty high success rate. We hit over 80% success, which, the standard threshold is usually 75. That's considered a success. And as you can see, we have full success, which means you completely disambiguated gender, assigned the right gender, and the sentence nothing else got broken. But sometimes, yes, you get the pronouns and all the agreements right, but something else can go slightly astray in the sentence. But again, our perfectly well predicted results or conversions are at a very high rate of 80. So let's go to the next one. As we said, and as we mentioned already, in our platform, we have what we call edit effort estimation model, which is also an equivalent of quality estimation. And when you use your customer data, you can actually fine-tune the model on top of the foundational model. And as you can see, if you go to binary classification, no edits or edits expected, again, the accuracy of predictions is really high. The success criterion was 75, but we significantly exceed that. And the languages, the language is Japanese, the language that we chose, for example. So it's not the easiest language for any kind of natural language processing. So there we go. Finding number 4. What I mentioned earlier, hallucinations are one of the biggest challenges when deploying Gen AI, when deploying large language models. Our research approach is probability logs and semantic entropy. And that really helps you identify hallucinations in translation. Hallucinations can be pretty harmful, right? Hallucinations can slow you down. They can introduce potentially detrimental consequences, especially if there is no human in the loop. So here we have a great example. There's absolutely nothing about the source that provoked a personal ed to be delivered by the platform in Italian. There was no reason for that to happen whatsoever. And the model just chose to do so. Obviously, there are a lot of things you can do to fine-tune to optimize your prompts to mitigate hallucinations. But also what we found is, again, using 2 data science techniques, probability log and randomness, can actually help us mitigate hallucinations in translation. So here's a little bit more on our approach. You really look at predictability and unpredictability, and you analyze peaks and valleys and what the variance actually is, and the correlation to expected edit rate. So that really helps us significantly in deploying LLMs into our workflows and processes. Finding 5, automated MQM is actually a reality. And again, that's something that the industry and academia have been debating about, whether it's possible or not. And we do know that there are some successful implementations out there. And here is our version 1, version 2, version 3. Version 1 can do it on the document level, detect bad translation, and make MQM-based selections for future human evaluation. So basically, that gives you an opportunity to MQM everything across your entire content, and then you can do targeted LQA based on where your MQM falls short. Now, what's in very close to, I would say, POC now is auto MQM on the string level, analyzing each individual sentence. But still, obviously, you want your MQM to be performed in context, because this way you can actually capture a broader range of errors. And then autofix or self-healing, that's something that's, again, in research. Okay, so you've identified an error. Why not just go back and fix it? So that's our finding 5. Let's go to finding 6. And I already spoke about it. So from research and development to production. A lot of us know what it means that you've been translating for a long, long time. What does it mean? It means that the content must have probably did drift. It means that your terminology could have changed. It means that you can introduce a lot of errors and a lot of confusion into your legacy translation memories. So what can you actually do with that? You can actually apply natural language processing and some AI techniques to first flag issues in your translation memory, all sorts of inconsistencies, all sorts of dichotomies and ambiguities, and then you can actually run automation using AI techniques to actually fix those translation memories, saving you a ton of time and ton of money, because we do know that managing linguistic assets by fully human process, which what the industry had been doing for years, it can be done, but it's very, very expensive. Having said that, obviously, if you really want the quality of your translation memories to, like, you want 100% guarantee that your translation memories and glossaries have been reconciled and have been fully top optimal, top quality. This is where you probably want to introduce human in the loop and have a human have a look at the errors that are of most significance for your organization. So on that note, what is next? And there is a lot of things happening. So continue working. What has already been released, and Andrew already spoke about it. So glossary term insertion in morphologically aware manner. Continue and adaptive translation memory has already been released, or we can actually call it adaptive translation, which is pretty equivalent to adaptive machine translation. It is just done on a different level using machine translation engines and using models, but it's just done on the TM level. So formality changes for languages highly sensitive to formality. And those, for instance, would be, we know that Spanish and German, the famous tu and usted, all of these things, the same organization can be equally selling, like say, same hotel chain can be selling to backpackers or to luxury travelers. And obviously the tone of voice and the modality needs to be completely different for those cases. So LLMs for translation evaluation was said that that's already been implemented and released, and fine-tuned models to increase the accuracy of translation evaluation predictions. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, translation directly with large language models, in this case GPT, is definitely available, and it's definitely an option if you choose to do so. But again, our findings do not quite suggest that that's the direction, unless there is a very particular reason to do that. So in research and what's happening now, and some are in very close POC, and some are actually being tested on our internal processes. And as I already mentioned it, large language model translation smoothing for different shortcomings of neural machine translation or any other translation engine. Auto MQM, high performing auto MQM, and we're actually, as I said, we're running some very close POCs now, and it's a matter of very short time until we will actually be able to use it in production. Large language models for higher quality translation. Large language models they're not steady, right? They are evolving. So we're actually researching to make sure that we're not missing the point where models fine-tuned specifically for translation, the general purpose models actually do perform on par or outperform NMT. Choose your favorite LLM, multi-LLM strategy. While we augment implementation of large language models with our proprietary IP, we also make sure that we remain LLM agnostic and are able to implement best in class. We have we actually have a deployment team that runs continuous benchmarking and assessment of large language models. And that gives you an opportunity to rely on our expertise, but also decide based on our expertise and based on our benchmarking or your own preferences, what LLM you actually want to be implementing. Some organizations are very strict in as you can only implement this kind of Gen AI. And we make sure that we cater to those scenarios, and every organization can get that suite of large language model applications, large language model based applications fit for their governance and compliance. LLM as an MT provider, that one we already mentioned, that's in research. LLM as a standalone translation provider. And then there is another one, like we find out, as I said, 2024 was a year of findings, and we find out that no matter what workflow you use, there are things like special characters, emojis, caps, hashtags, tags, and brackets that large language models just might not necessarily like, or machine translation. So this is where it's essential, because a lot of content, UGC content or gaming content or streaming content, could contain all of those characters, or even software code. So it's very important that they're handled properly and also compliant with local conventions. Now, what's coming up? Self-hosted LLMs. Running large language models can be equally inexpensive or expensive, depending on how many tokens you actually use for your prompts and what kind of techniques you're using. So definitely researched, no commitment made, but we're definitely researching what would it mean to actually raise translation and language quality evaluation LLMs internally. There might not be the need, but we definitely want to be very informed there. Expand language support. We do know that long-tail languages are still an issue, and under-resourced languages are mostly prone to hallucinations and factual inaccuracies. So that's another area of research. Source content pre-editing. Again, there are a lot of question marks around this one. Again, we want to have a very informed opinion. Obviously, optimizing source content for translation has been a topic for many years. Now with Gen AI in the picture, you can do a lot more with optimizing source content, but then questions are, what does it do to future leverage, and also how sensitive is your organization to actually having your source content tweaked? Now, obviously, you can just optimize it, but then return to the original translation and the original source in the translation memory. But that's, again, something where we want to have very informed opinion. We've seen equally successes and not so successful implementations. Improvements for translation quality estimation and continued work for automating MQM. Both of those go hand in hand. Now, content creation, content generation, obviously, it's becoming more and more prominent. So that's another area of our research that's on our roadmap, to understand what benefits you actually get from generating multilingual content versus translation. And we do have some in-house prompt engineering tooling, but we do want to optimize it and get the best out of it. As we've said in a couple of our webinars, there is this new generation of linguists that actually are prompt engineers. No data scientist can equally speak Swahili and Chinese. So that's where you need the linguists who can engineer prompts and interpret the metrics that have been obtained. So that's it for our research. As you can see, a lot of exciting things have happened, are happening, and will be happening. So that's it from me.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. That was super informative. I'm really excited about what we have coming next. You'll see at the bottom of the screen our next webinar link. It's all about predictions. We did have one question, Olga, that I did want to kind of get your thoughts on here. You spoke a bit in research around expanding LLM language support. Do you have any insight into kind of what languages are working really well with AI and LLM-based translation? What families are we seeing kind of performing the best, and what kind of support we already have for AI translation languages?
Well, generally, I would say that languages, like your usual suspects, would usually be rendering themselves best to automated translation. And you can fairly easily divide content into three groups, I would say. There is group one that performs perfect and quite often reaches human parity. And that's where I would say that absolutely Romance languages, Germanic languages, and Nordic languages would be even easier to handle than German, or Dutch, for instance, would be easier to handle than German, just because of the grammar of these languages. So Romance would top my list. Germanic languages would come next. APAC languages, i.e. Japanese, both Chinese and to a less extent Korean, would be slightly more difficult to handle, but we still see them performing well, because there is a lot of training data and there's a lot of history in models handling those languages. So a lot of findings have been corrected and implemented. The ones where I would have a little bit of a question mark would be more complex Slavic languages. And then from there, I would go, like, for instance, Finno-Ugric, still a challenge. But then we also have a whole group of less resourced languages, like, say, African languages, or like long-tail Slavic languages, or long-tail Southeast Asian languages. And that's where we in equal parts need to improve the model performance, but also expand the training data set, through different techniques, through scrubbing data, through transcription and ASR, And depending on, again, on the modality of your model, if it's a multi-model model, then obviously you would want your visual and audio data. So I hope I answered the question in terms of the
That
breakdown.
was super helpful. Yeah. And I don't know, Andrew, if you want to comment on current support.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably worth mentioning that our AIT offering, which we announced today, also has support for 60 languages right now. And we want to make sure that we're trying to cover, not exactly AI LLM translation, but as part of our AI offerings and AI tools, our AIT translation solution does support 60 languages. We want to make sure that and with the same quality guarantees, we want to make sure, same satisfaction guarantees, we want to make sure that we're supporting the languages that our customers are asking for and are using.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I hope to see everyone here on our webinar in December, and we appreciate your time, Olga and Andrew, and all of the audience. So thanks for joining.
Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.